In this video we will create a RAG chatbot, and this RAG chatbot will be relatively cool because we can simply upload files into our Google Drive and the chatbot will update its knowledge. This is of course really practical. This is somehow similar to a GPT, but the knowledge will get updated automatically. Second, you can also make a link, so make it public and share it with other people. And lastly, you can also eventually make similar chatbots and embed them into websites, for example, for customer support. So basically, this is like a blueprint on how to make RAG chatbots. In this video, we will start with the first part. We will create the knowledge of our RAG chatbot. For this example, we assume that we like to read quarterly earning reports from companies. So we can simply upload a file in our Google Drive and then ask questions. This is of course practical. And in this first video, we will simply create the knowledge of our chatbot. We will simply create another workflow, so we press plus. I am on my local host right now. And now we need to include a node. And I told you that we want to use Google Drive. So we press plus and we search of course for Google Drive as the trigger node. So we use Google Drive. On changes involving a specific folder, this thing is now included, but let's just wait for a minute. We need to give this a name. Let's just say load data from Drive, for example. And let's just make it a bit bigger to Pinecone, because Pinecone will be later our database. And what we want to do right now is of course to go into our Google Drive because we have to make a folder. What I want to do first is of course to make a folder into my Google Drive. It's called Tesla Earnings, and here are the Q3 earnings of Tesla. If you go for example onto the investor relations from Tesla, you see that the Q3 earnings are of course out. Also the Q4 earnings are out, but I want to show you later how we can update this knowledge base. That's why I want to download the Q4 later and make these updates. Right now Q3 is included, and that's right now at this minute every single thing that we need. When I open up this PDF, you see that in this PDF is a lot of data. I have to tell you right now at this minute, this data is not perfectly structured for an LLM. An LLM works a lot better with Markdown. But for now, for the sake of this tutorial, we simply leave it as it is. I want to show you later how we can create these things in Markdown and have even better outputs. So this is just the first tutorial. We want to make it as easy as possible. As soon as this is included, we come back to N8N and we press of course on our Google Drive trigger node. I have already connected my Google Drive account, but because I see all the time problems here, we do this step by step. We press create new credentials if you do not have any credentials. You go on to the documentation. This is always the same thing with this Google Cloud Console. So you can simply press on it, you go on console, then of course you make a new project. You can simply press in this button here, then new project. Let's just give it a name, for example, N8N Drive Test. Then we press create of course. As soon as this thing is created, in this upper right corner you can press on it and you can use this thing. So use project. Of course we press here once again. We go on APIs and services, we go on library. In the library we need to search for the thing that you need. So for example Google Drive, and we send this out. You need of course the Google Drive API. We need to activate this API and wait for a minute until this is active. As soon as this is active, we press of course on the OAuth consent screen. First steps. We give it a name, N8N Drive. We give our email, we go on. Extern, we go on. Our email, once again, we go on, we accept, and we go on. I just want to show this once again because I see here problems all the time. Now we will make our OAuth client by pressing on this button. It is of course a web application. Web client 1 is here okay. And once again we need our redirect URL. We press on it. We come back into N8N, copy this line. We include it here. We can scroll down and we press create. After this thing is created, we press on test group, because here on test group we need to use a test user. So we press on add user and we give our mail here. This is a point where I see problems from time to time. So we include our mail and we connect this thing. As soon as this is connected, it should work. So we go on clients, we press here, and now we have everything that we need. The client ID of course, we copy this. We come back into N8N, throw in the client ID. then the client secret key, we copy these, come back into N8N, throw it down here, and now we sign in with Google. We use our profile, we go on, we accept everything, and go on. Now this thing will be green, hopefully once again. We can close this down, we can also close this down, and now you see that this thing is connected, and here we have the mode we want to use every single minute. So every minute this thing will search in our Google Drive folder if new things get included. And if something new gets included, we will get updates immediately. We want to trigger these, of course, changes involving a specific folder. So as soon as we get a change in our folder, this thing will get triggered every single minute. Then we need to choose from our list. If we come back here, go back, you see Tesla earnings is the name here. So we simply search from the list for Tesla earnings. You can simply type it in here if you have a lot of folders. Tesla earnings, so we use this. And then watch for, you can press on it. We use, of course, file created, because I want to upload files all the time, and as soon as something new gets uploaded, we simply want to fetch this event. Because I already have an event, I simply press fetch test event, and then we see if this thing comes through. So we see we have, of course, some data here, and if you scroll down, you see that everything should work. You also find the original file name, and it's of course Tesla Q3. Exactly this file. So the fetching was correct. We can close this down. The next thing that I like to do from time to time is to press save. And as soon as we have fetched our test event here, we press plus. We use once again Google Drive, because we need to download this thing. So we press on Google Drive, download file, and we include this. And here is everything set right. Of course, it's our Google Drive account, the resource is a file. We want to download this file, and now this is important. Download, you do not want to download from lists, so you do not want to download every time the same file. You need to find your file right here, and if you scroll down, you will find the file ID. So if you scroll down, under spaces, you find the ID of this file. So the name is of course TSLA, and the ID is this right here, and you can throw in the ID right here, and then this thing will simply get downloaded every time as soon as we upload a new file, and this will be automatically. If you press test step, you will become of course the data, or you will download the data from this file. So there we have it. If we press view, it's binary right now. Let's just download it so that we can see it. Yes, it's the same report. So this worked, of course. And like I said, these pictures, they are of course not perfect for our RAG application. This is just so that we can make it simple for our first RAG chatbot. Later I will show you how you can improve this. So we have downloaded our file, and what we want to do right now is, of course, to upload these files into a vector database. And for the vector database, I like Pinecone for these. So you can press plus and then we search some nodes, but before we do that, we simply go on Google, we search for Pinecone, then you press on this first link. You need to log in or sign up. If you do not have an account, just simply sign up. If you have an account, we simply log in this account. I have already an account. You can work with this thing completely for free. As soon as you are here, this thing will be most likely empty for you, and you can simply press create index. Then we will give it a name. Let's just say N8N course DSLA. Let's just do it this way. Then you need the dimensions. And for the dimension, we simply use the text embeddings free small. You can simply press on these and the dimensions will be automatically. It's important that you remember what you choose here. The text embeddings free small from OpenAI are perfect, simply use them. And then you can scroll down and press create index. As soon as this index is created, let's just wait for a minute, then we can connect these things. The next step is of course to press on API keys, create a key. N8N course, create key. Then you need to copy this key. We come back into N8N, and here of course we search for Pinecone. So if you type in vector store, you will find a lot of different vector stores. One of the easiest is also the in-memory vector store. You can also use this, like you can play with these things a little bit, but I do really like Pinecone vector store. If you press on these, we use of course add documents to vector store. And here, of course, you need to connect your account. Because I have already accounts, we will create a new one. So simply create new credentials. And here you throw in the credentials from the API key that we have created. Then you press save. The credentials will be connected successfully, hopefully. And then you are connected with Pinecone. The operation mode is, of course, insert documents. This is important. And then the Pinecone index from list, you can also search for a Pinecone index. So from the Pinecone index, you simply press on it, and we use N8N course DSLA, so we simply use this. And now what I like to do is to give a namespace to Pinecone. You can also give namespaces here directly into Pinecone on your databases, but I like to do it in N8N because it makes it a little bit easier and simpler. You can press on this thing, you can simply press Pinecone namespaces, and I call this namespace simply DSLA. N8N. This thing is now set, you can close this down, but first you need here of course a lot of stuff. Let's just connect these two things. Then we need the embeddings models, so we press plus. I like to use the embeddings from OpenAI, you already know this. You need to connect of course with an OpenAI account. Of course, you have already some credentials, just use some credentials that we have made in this course. And here it's important that you use the same model that you have used in Pinecone. In Pinecone, we used the text embeddings 3 small, and that's what you need to use right here. Then this thing is connected, so it works. Then the next thing is, of course, that you need here this document, so you press plus. I like to use the default data loader, so you simply press on the default data loader. And here you need to choose, of course, the right data. The type of this data is, of course, not JSON. So you press on this is binary data, because we use a PDF in this example. The mode is load all input data. You can also load specific data if you do not want to load specific stuff. And the data format is, in our case, it would be a PDF. But you can also just use automatically detect by MIME type if it's, let's just say that you want to upload sometimes text files or whatever, you can also choose this right here. And you close this down, and this thing is still red because you need to have a text splitter. You simply press on this text splitter, and what I like to use is the recursive character text splitter. Splits texts into chunks by character recursively, recommended for most use cases. More on text splitter for these embeddings later, we just want to do it really simple and really easy. Here we always have chunk size and chunk overlap. For a PDF in this size, I like to use, like roughly, let's just say 800 chunks, and with an overlap of, I think 50 is fine here. You can also go up to 900. If you work with this default data, this will also eventually work. More on chunk size and chunk overlap later. We want to do this a little bit faster, so just use this for a normal PDF. And if your document is a lot smaller, you can use, of course, smaller chunk size and smaller chunk overlap. Now this thing is also here connected. So this thing should be perfect right now. If you come back, for example, into Pinecone. Here in Pinecone we go on our database, and you see in this database is of course right now at least empty. If we come back into N8N and we press test workflow, we should load this data into our Pinecone vector database. So you see this thing gets loaded in right now, and after this thing is done, hopefully we get all of the stuff in our Pinecone vector database. So you see 94 items get added. And if we come back into Pinecone, right now it's empty. Let's just wait a minute. This thing should come through. I just simply can reload this page. And there we have it. So you see it. We have right now 49 documents in this database, and they are all splitted and embedded in our vector database. If you want to organize this even better, you can come back into N8N, and by your data loader you can press on it, and you can also use metadata. So you can press on options, you press on metadata, you can use apply property, you give a name, let's just say DSLA. Of course it's Q3, and then the value, you can find the value here if you go on schema. You can find on the left side the ID. And under the ID is of course the name, so you can simply throw this thing here. And of course this only works if you go on mapping and then schema. Under the ID is the name, and we can simply throw this value in here. And this is how we can include metadata. So until now we do not have metadata. This is of course not perfect. If you go into Pinecone, of course we can delete all of this data and re-upload it so that we have metadata in our files. This is not really necessary, but this can help to organize your vector database a little bit better. So here you see we do not have any metadata, but if you go on namespaces, we can simply delete all of this namespace by pressing on these 3 dots, delete. Here you need to type in DSLAN8N for our example, delete namespace. Now this thing is gone, this thing will be completely empty as soon as all of this is deleted, so you see 0 records. And if you come back once again into N8N and you test your workflow once again, we will embed this data once again, but this time we also apply metadata, and as soon as metadata is implied, we are a little bit better organized. We come back into Pinecone, want to reload it. Now we have, of course, once again our namespace, and if we come back to browser, you see, if you scroll down, that we have right now the metadata with the name and also the exact name of the file, and we are a little bit more organized. So 49 documents, all with metadata included, thanks to our workflow from N8N. And our goal is right now, of course, that we can simply upload stuff into our Google Drive, and our Pinecone vector database will update this stuff automatically. In order to do that, so let's just see, we have 49 documents included right now at this minute, and if we come back into N8N, we need to make this thing here from inactive to active, and as soon as this thing is active, this thing will search every single minute if in my Google Drive account comes new data. And the new data that I want to have is of course Q4, so I can simply download Q4. I want to download it here on my desktop. The next thing that I want to do is to go into my Google Drive, and here in this Google Drive folder I simply throw the Q4 from Tesla, and as soon as this thing is updated or uploaded, my N8N workflow will simply try to search for these updates all the time, and then will make updates automatically. If we come here into executions, let's just see, I think in a minute or so a new execution will come through and everything will get included in our Pinecone vector database completely automatical. Here you see that this thing is right now running, so it seems to work, and right now we see that we had a success, so this thing was perfect. Let's just come back into Pinecone, and in Pinecone we have right now 112 documents, so every time as soon as I upload something here, my workflow will simply get triggered automatically, but just if we have this active. This is important. If you do not have this active, you need to press test workflow all the time. As soon as this is active, our trigger node will get executed every minute and see if new stuff gets included here, and if new stuff gets included, we will simply automatically update our Pinecone vector database. And that's basically our automation, the first part of the automation. This is our vector database, and it was relatively easy. We started with a Google Drive trigger. It searches every single minute for updates into our Google Drive folder. Then the thing gets downloaded as binary file and uploaded into a Pinecone vector database. And in the next video we will connect this Pinecone vector database to a RAG chatbot so that the RAG chatbot can simply search the database and give us information about Tesla earnings all the time. So see you in the next video.